Welcome to the Voice of Reason, Carolina charm with California wit. Whether it's the law, politics, relationships, or recipes for the kitchen, the Voice of Reason is online and in all our hearts. Now, please welcome the Voice of Reason, Mr. Ted Durden.
Good evening and welcome to another edition of the Voice of Reason. I am your host, Ted Durden. And boy, have things been crazy in the news lately. Kavanaugh. He's another gift presented by Trump that just keeps on giving. So the first thing I want to talk about, of course, is a rally that Trump had in Mississippi, I believe over the weekend. Now, it was interesting because of the fact that during the Senate Judiciary hearings, when Ford testified and then Kavanaugh testified, he described Ford's testimony as credible. That's what he said. Now, when he showed up at the rally in Mississippi, he had a totally different spin. And after I watched it, I had to ask myself, okay, now, is he doing this simply to play to his base? Or is this really how this man is? I mean, because he gets up there in front of these people and he starts mocking her. He starts saying things like, okay, she testifies, but look at her testimony. How did you get home? I don't remember. How did you get there? I don't remember. Where's the place? I don't remember. How many years ago was it? I don't know. What neighborhood was it in? I don't know. Where's the house? I don't know. Upstairs, downstairs, what was it? I don't know. But I had one beer. That's the only thing I remember. Now, and he also made the comment, if it happened, why didn't she report it? I would invite Trump to do this. And I'm a man of a certain age, so what I'm about to say is going to be probably over your heads for most of my audience. In 1985, there was a movie that was made, and it was groundbreaking. It was called The Rape of Richard Beck, and it starred one of my favorite character actors at the time, who was Richard Crenna. Now, Richard Crenna played this cop who was a no-holds-barred kind of guy. He was tough. So what happened is he followed this criminal suspect into a building. And instead of waiting for backup, what he did instead was he rushed in by himself, got overpowered by the suspect, and was brutally raped. Nobody in the world had ever seen anything like that. And he displayed and exhibited the same sort of symptoms, the same sort of affect that any woman would have experienced had she been brutally raped the way that he was. He suffered from shock. He suffered from shame. He suffered from humiliation. He suffered from self-blame. Because, of course, the first question is, well, what did you do to cause this to happen to you? What did you do to cause this to happen to you? You didn't get any, not the sympathetic approach. So Trump probably should watch that movie, because I think that sums it all up when a woman is raped. It's amazing to me that you can take a scenario where nowadays in this current age, with the various lifestyles that are out there right now, and some of the racist things that go on right now, if there was a man now who went into a police station and said, I was just raped by a group of men, he would probably be coddled, taken back into a room, made comfortable, sing to. If you have a gay guy, a gay man or a gay woman that walks into a police station and said that they were assaulted because of the sexual preference, they would immediately take a report and investigate it. But you have a woman that walks in and says that she was brutally raped. The first thing they ask is, was it somebody you knew? Did you do something to encourage this man? they're interrogated and again made to feel as if they did something wrong. That's amazing to me that they would be treated in such a manner. And for all intents and purposes, that's how Trump is treating this. He himself, who has been accused multiple times of sexual assault, who can forget the open mic when he made the comment, and I'm going to be paraphrasing here because I don't remember exactly what he said. Well, you know, when you're rich and you're famous, you can grab any woman by the meow. That's what you can do. And what does that have to do with? And it has to do with because when you are a white man and you have prestige, power, and money, you have this entitlement mentality that you can just take or get whatever it is that you want. Now, it's interesting that Dr. Ford, who was a victim of a sexual assault, isn't getting a whole lot of sympathy from Trump, but his Supreme Court nominee is getting a lot of sympathy from Trump. What he said again at that same rally is, look, and a man's life is in tatters. A man's life is shattered. His wife is shattered. His daughters, who are beautiful, incredible young kids, they destroy people. They want to destroy people. These are really evil people. Who the hell is he talking about? Because the only person that came forth with the allegation was Ford. Now, do I agree with the way that was presented at the 12th hour by Feinstein? No, I don't agree with that. But regardless of how you try to politicize what occurred, it does not change or alter what she experienced. It doesn't. And then he goes on to say that it's a very scary time for young men in America. Let's qualify that. It's a very scary time for young white men in America when you could be guilty of something you may not be guilty of. This is a very difficult time. Yeah, I guess if you're at his level, maybe it might be a bad time because of the hashtag Me Too movement, when women have simply gotten sick and tired of being raped and abused and taken advantage of. Let's look at the laundry list. Let's look at that. Look at Bill O'Reilly. What did he do? Sexually assault women, kept it quiet, paid them off. Look at Larry King, Matt Lauer, Charlie Rose, Les Moonves. There's a plethora of men, rich white men, who have suddenly found themselves under the microscope and under the gun. But what's amazing to me is he thinks that being suspected of something, being charged with something, wrongfully so, is something that's new. You know, maybe instead of watching television so much, maybe you should pick up a newspaper sometimes and read about it. Because there was an issue and a situation back in the 1980s when a gentleman by the name of Steve Titus was wrongfully convicted of raping a hitchhiking teenager. It was overturned, but not before he spent a substantial number of years in prison. The same thing with Clarence Brandley, wrongly convicted. He spent 9 years in prison. And there was also the McMartin case during the 1980s, and I'm talking about a whole preschool where 36 people were charged with something, were charged with pedophilia. They were charged with satanic rituals involving children. 34 of them were convicted. 2 of them died in prison, and they were eventually overturned when it was learned that the kids were coached. So people are wrongly accused all the time. The important thing is what you want to do is investigate. Make sure you ferret out all the facts. That's what you need to do. And that's why I found it very telling when Kavanaugh was asked by Senator Durbin that, don't you agree that it would be a good idea to have a further FBI investigation done in order to clear your name so that when you take the bench, if you are appointed, that it's untainted? His answer was very telling. He said, I will agree with whatever the committee recommends, knowing that it's a Republican-led committee. When pressed further by Senator Durbin, no, I want to know what you think. What did he do? He sat back, he crossed his arms, and he refused to answer. Chose not to answer. So again, to me, that's very telling. It simply is. It's amazing to me how this whole process has become politicized, which leads me into the legal aspect of what's been going on regarding the Kavanaugh nomination. I listened to what Ford had to say, and I believe what happened to her happened. Trump was making a lot of fun about she didn't remember this, remember that. Ask anybody who's ever been held up at gunpoint to describe the person that's robbing them. The details are sketchy because all you're looking at is that gun that's stuck in your face. You can't give an accurate description of your assailant. But once he leaves you and you have an opportunity to calm down, then you can take in the entire scenery. You can give a lot of detail. But as far as what happens in that moment is very real. And it's traumatic. And when something traumatic happens, it affects how you react and respond. And when I look at Judge Kavanaugh, I looked at how he testified. The first thing that struck me was his affect and his demeanor. Now, I think the Kavanaugh that we saw during the hearings, that wasn't Kavanaugh. I think the Kavanaugh that we saw during the television interview, I think that was more like him. Calm, kind of reserved kind of guy. I think the guy that showed up at the Senate hearing, I think that was someone that was playing to Trump. Because, see, the thing about the Supreme Court, and this is why I don't think he should be appointed to the Supreme Court, it is supposed to be, quote unquote, an apolitical body. That's what it is supposed to be. He comes out and he talks about that it's the Democrats. It's a political hit. This is payback because Clinton lost the election. It's been put on by a bunch of left-wingers who are financing this whole thing. That's what he said. Now, if you want to look back at Clarence Thomas, what happened with him, he was angry, but he was reserved. You could tell by his affect that he was upset. But he never accused either one of the political parties, Democrat or Republican, of high-level lynching. That isn't what he did. But see, this is what Kavanaugh did. So immediately, my thinking is, okay, if this guy makes it to the Supreme Court, who do you think he's going to be beholden to? He's going to be beholden to the party that got him there. And that's going to be the Republican Party. I don't want that kind of judge sitting on the bench because he has bias. Now, it's one thing like when Sotomayor, when she was questioned, I hope to bring all my life experiences with me when I get to the bench in order to make my decisions. No, this is a guy who, while he was vehemently upset, accused one party of trying to screw up his nomination and victimize him. I don't want that kind of judge sitting on the bench. There's another thing that he did. Any psychologist or psychiatrist that you talk to is something that men do. We deflect. One of the ways that we deflect is through anger. So imagine here you are accusing a man of something. He raises up, he bristles up, his louse gets void. How dare you charge me? How dare you accuse me of something like that? Often the accuser is taken aback because of the ferocity and the feral nature of the response. The immediate thinking is, well, wow, he's that upset. Well, wow, I guess maybe I'm wrong. I guess maybe he didn't do that. The self-righteous indignation. That's a character trait of a liar, of somebody who's trying to deflect in order to avoid blame. That's what he did. The other thing that bothers me is the people who sit on this court are supposed to be above reproach. Again, they have to have a certain level of integrity and character. This man was lying all over the place. And I'm not just talking about the sexual assault allegations. I'm talking about the fact that as far as the level and extent of his drinking, he was lying. So if you're going to lie about the small things, How can we trust you about the little things? On the podcast that I was on earlier today, and I'm going to repeat it on this show, there was what I call the P story. There was a man who married a woman, beautiful, sexy, couldn't cook worth a damn. So what she did is, one of the things that she could make, as far as vegetables were concerned, other than the salad, was little green peas. So every dinner, no matter what she made, there was always little green peas. And of course, he got tired of it, but he never told her because he didn't want to hurt her feelings. He loved her. So what happened is, birthday party, surprise birthday party for him, planned for his wife, over her girlfriend's house. And she says, oh, my husband, he loves little green peas. Make the little green peas. Oh, you'll love that. So he comes over, throw the surprise party. Guess what? He saw the little bowl with the little green peas on, little pearl onions. You know what he did? He lost it. He said, oh, my God, I can't stand this. I'm so sick of little green peas. He didn't realize what he'd done until he saw the look of horror on his wife's face. And she ran out of the room. So, of course, feeling like crap, he went to console her. Guess what happened? Through her tears, she looked at him and she said, if you will lie to me about something so small, what else have you lied to me about? Because if you lie about the little things, how the hell can I trust you on the big things? And rightfully so. Rightfully so. So I don't think this man, above and beyond the sexual assault allegations, I don't think he has the temerity, the character, or the reserve, the demeanor to sit on the highest court in the land. He just doesn't have it. And I don't think, aside from I don't believe he has a character for it, I believe that he will get on that. If he is appointed, he will take direct offense at anything that is submitted by a Democratic president, that he will not support it, that he will find a way to rule against them. I don't trust the man. I don't trust the man. He has no business being on that court. He just doesn't. He needs to go back and just stay where he is and put his life together in some kind of way. Speaking of putting something together, the relationship trend that I see, and it's nothing new, actually. I call it projects and fixer-uppers. And it's about the psychology of women, specifically, that glom onto, that hang on to, that fall in love with just broken down men. I'm talking about they meet the guy, he doesn't have a job, he's living out of his car, he can't take care of himself, let alone her, and she just falls all up in love with him. And I don't get that. I just don't understand that. Why would a woman, especially a woman of means, attach herself to a broken penis man like that? I don't get it. And I talked to some friends of mine who are therapists and psychologists, and they explained it to me. And I hope this will help those who find themselves trapped in that circle, in that ongoing where you're just stuck and committing and repeating the same thing over and over and over again, the same pattern of behavior that you keep choosing broken down men. I'm not talking about a bad boy syndrome. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about men that just can't even take care of themselves, let alone you. And all of a sudden, the woman gloms onto him, hangs onto him for everything that she's worth. They're called rescuers. And they explained to me that the reason they do this is because of the fact that it is often the result of a life that they've led that's full of drama, trauma, and turmoil. And they also acknowledge the fact that women of that ilk derive satisfaction and self-esteem from that. Because let's face it, let's keep it real, women. Come on now, let's just keep it on real. I don't know a woman in the world that hasn't got together with a man and tried to change him. I just think it's in your DNA. If you think he's doing good, oh, you can do something better. Oh, yeah, you do that good, but I'm going to show you how to do it better. Well, baby, if you did it this way, it would be better. I just think that's in your DNA. But when you grab onto these men that become projects unto themselves, it often doesn't end well. It doesn't. I mean, you find yourself desperately trying to help your partner, doing everything that you can to change him. Because it's almost like if you get with a man who may be considered your equal, I think the issue there is you may feel like, well, wow, we're on the same level. He really doesn't need me. But if you get together with a broken down man, then yeah, he really needs you. You really have to be there for him. You get self-fulfilled in that way. And that's not healthy, because chances are, most of the time, it's a man that can't be repaired. A lot of them may be alcoholics. A lot of them may be drug abusers. And some of them are just abusive. But somehow you see some sort of redeeming quality in that man. And that one redeeming quality that he has, he needs you. It's like an aphrodisiac. It's like a drug. He needs me. So because he needs me, I'm going to stick around. I'm going to put up with all this mess. The fact that I'm out there working a hard 8 and he's working a lazy 5. Just sitting there walking around playing PlayStation, Xbox, whatever, while I'm out here trying to make ends meet. But it's going to be okay, because I'm going to pull him up. I'm going to change him. You need to get off of that. You're doing damage and harm to yourself. Because the first thing that all the therapists that I talk to, you have to recognize why you do it. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. So the first thing you have to do is identify, why do you do it? Why do I keep following this same pattern? Once you recognize and see what it is that is at your core, that is causing you to repeat this pattern, then you can effectuate change. But you have to look at yourself first. You have to look inside first and understand what it is that is driving you the way that it is. Otherwise, you're just going to be doomed to repeat it. Okay, well, enough of the heavy stuff. After this commercial break, I'm going to come back with a Dover Soul recipe that if you make it, you're going to say, wow, this is food porn.
You're listening to The Voice of Reason with Ted Durden, brought to you by Turchin Law, 818-230-3110. If you need any assistance with employment, labor, or workers' compensation law, call Turchin Law, 818-230-3110. And if you like The Voice of Reason, please subscribe and tell a friend. Now we go back to The Voice of Reason with host Ted Durden.
Now, at the last edition of The Voice of Reason, we talked about I was going to be doing some, again, seafood recipes, and this is another one. Now, for this one here, if you are a fish lover, this recipe is called filet of sole meunière. Now, Dover sole, but sole meunière just has a more sophisticated romantic ring to it, so I say it like that. It's basically a fish. Now, the important thing that you have to remember when it comes to making this dish is that Dover sole is like shrimp. If you cut the tails off a shrimp, they'll curl up really tight. So on the Dover sole, you have to make sure to make small slits in them, because what that does is that prevents them from curling up. So let's talk about some of the ingredients that you're going to need. So let's talk about what the whole dinner is going to look like. So the whole dinner is going to be this. It's going to be filet of sole meunière. The pasta that we're going to serve with it is going to be a mushroom risotto. Now, I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail about the mushroom risotto. We can do that later. And as far as the vegetable is concerned, there would be two options. What I really like to serve with it is a string bean almondine. However, not everybody can eat nuts. So then the option for that would be a mixed green salad with spinach in it, some arugula, some other spring lettuces, some radicchio. And then what you're going to pair that with, because it is fish, you need a white wine, is going to be a viognier. And that's a white wine that has notes of peach, tangerine, honeysuckle. And if you find a viognier that's been stored or matured in oak, it's going to have hints of vanilla with it. And I would round that off with a dessert of cheesecake. And if you decide to make a strawberry puree to put on top of it, that would be even better. But let's get to the Dover sole, or the filet of sole meuniere. So the first thing that you're going to need, again, when I come up with these recipes, they're supposed to be for a family, a small family. But again, if you want to make it romantic, just you and your wife, you and your girlfriend, fiance, then you can cut it down, not quite by half, because in this particular recipe, you would need 6 skinless sole fillets, anywhere from 6 to 8 ounces each. Now, if it's going to be for the two of you, you might get away with 3. So you can cut that in half, because most men are going to eat more than women. He may have 2, she may have 1. You're going to need 1 cup of all-purpose flour, a tablespoon of salt, preferably sea salt, and have a little bit more on the side to season it to taste. You're going to have a half teaspoon of fresh ground white pepper. And the reason you do that, because it's a white fish, you don't want, it's for appearance's sake. That's the reality of it. You're going to need about 6 tablespoons of unsalted butter. That's going to be about 3/4 of a stick. And again, if you're going to cut it in half, then you'll cut this recipe in half accordingly. 6 tablespoons of olive oil, a 1/4 cup of fresh lemon juice, 1 tablespoon of chopped Italian parsley. And then if you want to garnish it, because it's all about presentation, have a few more sprigs, Okay. So then what you're going to do, after you've made the slits into the sides of the filet, you're going to take the flour, put it in a shallow bowl, stir it in a tablespoon of salt, half a teaspoon of white pepper. Then you're going to sprinkle both sides of the filet lightly with additional salt and the white pepper. Then you're going to, the phrase is dredge. And again, that's just slightly flouring them with this flour mixture. Now that you've gotten your butter and your oil in the pan, you're going to take and put those fillets in the pan. Now, it won't take very long for them to cook, only about a minute or so on one side and then 2 minutes on the other side. Now, once you've done with that, and again, it doesn't take these very long, you're going to take them off of the heat and you're going to put them in aluminum foil, but cover them loosely. Now, what you want to do at that point, you're going to wipe the skillet clean with the paper towels, and then you're going to start the process all over, because you want to make sure that you have a clean pan, per se, every time you do the fish fillets. So once that's done, then you're going to take the remaining butter, which should be about half a stick, over medium heat, put in the lemon juice, swirl it around to incorporate the mixture. And then once that's done, you're going to take that sauce and pour it over the Dover sole. Now, I focus specifically on the Dover sole because that's the central item that you're preparing. Now, the mushroom risotto that's going to accompany this, that actually will take about 45 minutes to an hour. So I didn't want to spend any time on how to prepare the mushroom risotto, because, again, the central part of this recipe or this meal is the Dover sole. So you prepare the mushroom risotto first. The streaming almondine, you'll prepare. The Dover sole, the filet of sole meuniere, that's going to be the last thing that you prepare. But again, once that's done, set your table, have your girlfriend, your wife, or fiance, whoever, sit down, candlelight dinner, finish that off with some cheesecake, have the nice Viognier wine. That's a beautiful evening. It's a beautiful evening. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been The Voice of Reason, and I have been your host, Ted Durden. It's been a pleasure putting on this show this evening, and although I know last week I said we were going to talk about immigration, but the way that Kavanaugh has been ruling the airwaves, I decided I had to speak on those subjects specifically with what's going on out there. So please stay tuned and come listen next week for another edition of The Voice of Reason. And I'll talk about immigration, marijuana laws, relationship trends. And next week, we'll talk about how to prepare a steak. Thank you and good evening.
You've been listening to The Voice of Reason, hosted by Mr. Ted Durden. The Voice of Reason is produced and directed by Appellant Associates and is part of the WorkCompMatters.org podcast channel. All opinions expressed on The Voice of Reason are the sole opinions of Mr. Ted Durden and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of his advertisers or the Work Comp Matters channel.